Why do you think Brexit has had such a big effect on the way consumers buy their goods from online retailers in the UK and the EU?
Well, I think firstly, suffice to say, the sort of international e-commerce, i.e., buying online from other geographies, over the last 3 or 4 years has grown every year on year. And I'm sure you've seen the influx of the likes of Alibaba and Amazon reaching out to everybody. I think unfortunately the pandemic has meant that last year that cultural behavior probably has accelerated by probably somewhere between 5 and 8 years. The reality is that you have trading agreements and regulations that have kicked in since January the 1st. And the consequence of that is that all of this is driven by data, right? So, when you're buying online, if I'm a consumer and I'm buying online, I'd ask you to ask any of your colleagues or friends, are you aware of duties, taxes, and all the other regulations? Well, you're not, because pre-January, buying from the UK, if you're a UK consumer buying from Europe, it's like a domestic market. So there were no additional regulations, rules, and there were no additional fees. What Brexit's done is actually we are a third party now. So it's like you going online and buying from the United States. There are different rules and regulations, and post-Brexit, that's exactly what's happened. And I don't think people were really aware of the consequence of that.
Who's to blame in your eyes? Is it the retailers, the postal companies, the carriers, or are they all equally responsible?
Yeah, I was thinking about this while it was all happening, because at Hurricane we've been preparing and talking about this for years. Because we are fully aware of data driving transactions, etc. The question of who to blame is I don't think blame's the right word. I think that because of the lateness of the transparency of the deal, if you like, could retailers have been better prepared? Probably not, because they needed to see what the real consequence of a deal would be. I think hats off to retailers and carriers who I think have done as much as they could have done. And I say to prepare, but to be ready is probably the better thing. But nobody really would have foreseen, particularly the bureaucracy and the red tape that has come in, literally on January the 1st. So I don't think it's blame. I think it's everybody has a responsibility to a certain part of this whole supply chain. But I think, maybe not blame, but I think didn't quite see the urgency across the whole spectrum. But I think they're feeling it now, and you've seen a number of carriers who have suspended services to and from Europe, but that will be temporary as they start to gather the right data. But yeah, I mean, it's hit everybody pretty hard, I think.
So you believe because of the uncertainty of a deal, it would have been really hard to prepare for the change?
I think that there's been some preparation. There's no doubt about it. And if you look at the carriers, they've done their best. I think a number of the retailers, probably didn't really foresee the severity of the inspections, the customs inspections. I think everybody believed there would be a bit more of a honeymoon period. But the reality is the regulation came in on 1st of January, and I think that's what's really hit people. So again, I wouldn't say blame. I think the really important piece now is we understand exactly what customs are looking for. We now understand exactly how they're going to recover VAT, as an example. European retailers now understand that they've got to register with customs for that VAT. I think the preparation, as I said, was as good as it probably could have been under the circumstance. Hindsight's a lovely thing. We've already always said at Hurricane, it doesn't matter what the event is, whether it's Brexit or coming up in the future is the Stop Act into the US. Everybody requires more and complete data with moving a parcel across border. So my message to everybody now is don't wait for an event. Make sure you have really, really good clean data, which is what's required to pass through customs.
So that message there is what you would shout out to all the retailers and the carriers in a way for them to put things right.
Yeah, it's not something that's insurmountable. We know what's required. I think a lot of retailers were relying on the carriers, and I have heard that anecdotally when I've spoken to retailers. They've said, "Oh, don't worry, my carrier will take care of that." Well, actually, it's the responsibility of the retailer. So I think there's an awareness now that everybody's got to get the right data. We're certainly seeing that in terms of both from a retailer and a carrier point of view, the amount of retailers and carriers that have contacted us for us to help and support them get the right data. So I think there's a realization there now, and there's certainly a realization that there will be no honeymoon period. In this day and age, particularly with the current environment, governments are going to want to recover taxes that are payable on sales, which is again understandable. So I think this will get more, not less, in the sense of recovering taxes on cross-border sales, and it'll certainly happen that way from the UK to Europe when that comes in July.
In terms of concerns, what are the implications if they don't get their systems sorted sooner rather than later?
Well, I think you've seen. I mean, it's a very good question, that, because I've seen some retailers just say, "Oh, I'm not going to sell to the UK," or vice versa. UK retailers, I just won't sell to Europe. That's not a financial model. We know the trade between the UK and Europe is some of the biggest corridors in the world. So you can't just say, "I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to trade with the UK," or vice versa. So I think the consequences, if people don't address the current issues for their own businesses, will be quite tough. But I don't actually believe that people won't address the problem. I think now that they're more aware of what they've got to do, I think you'll see more and more, retailers and carriers move to make sure that they're complying with the regulations and the data requirements. I think just on one point, we talk about the retailers and the carriers, but for me, the most important people in this is the consumer. It's you and me who are actually buying and spending money. And I think it is right that the retailers do make sure that the consumer is well informed about what the additional charges will be prior to the purchase being made, because the decision to purchase and at what price should be the consumer's choice, not anybody else's.
And how are you finding it running the business? I mean, does it give you many sleepless nights with everything that's gone on?
Well, from our point of view, no. I mean, this is what we do. This is our meat and potatoes. We've been providing data, accurate data for cross-border transactions for many, many years, and we're a supplier to most of the leading carriers and certainly to the platform. So for us, it's a little bit frustrating where you do see that. Customers are getting, surprises and complaining in all sorts of media about the extra costs, because that is avoidable. Solutions, as I've said earlier, they're there. So no, for my side, sleepless nights are more because we have so many inquiries about how we can help, which is, having a sleepless night with that is not a problem. Yeah. We've been talking about this situation publicly for about 2.5 years. And the interesting thing is, in the past, we've had lots of people going, lots of, entities, retailers or whatever, saying, oh yeah, it'll never really happen. There's so much now that is coming true of what we've been saying is going to happen. And the interesting thing is, people talk about Brexit being a UK-Europe problem. It's a global problem. And we're talking about the UK retailers and European retailers and consumers. But let me tell you, you're having exactly the same problem with retailers from Australia who are sending to the UK and to Europe, from the US who are sending to the UK, because it's all different rules now. So everybody's having a sort of knock-on effect. I did a tour pre-COVID to Australia, the Far East and the West Coast. And when, I was introduced to talk about Brexit, you could hear in the room that said, well, it's got nothing to do with us. And then as you start to say, well, actually, you do know that when you send to the UK or Europe today, same rules, tomorrow it won't be. And suddenly you see the penny drop where they go, oh, we haven't thought about that. And equally the other way around, right? So it is a global issue. Data in itself. So there's all these events that are coming up, and you guys should keep your eye on the Stop Act, which is going to happen on beginning of March. All right, it was supposed to happen 1st of January, but there's been a honeymoon period there. But we put out a press release that our estimation, and this has been verified by the US Border Control and the USPS. They've said anything that doesn't have the right data will be rejected and returned. Now, our estimation is that's nearly 1 billion shipments a year. I mean, that is a lot of stuff going back. So it's not just about, the Brexit thing is an issue. You've got the Stop Act coming in. You've got the removal of the low value threshold, which is so where you have the limits on 122 euros, etc. That all disappears in March. And then you've got the VAT payments the other way around happening in July. So you've got all of these events, but the common thing in all of these events is you have to have clean data. That's the commonality.